morning, everyone. Welcome to regular podcast Knowledge Empowers. As always, with you is me, Kat. 안녕하세요. Then we have Baruch.
Hello, hello, hello.
Then we have Kolach.
Dobre ráno, good morning, everyone.
And we have our guest, Kubik.
Hello.
What a morning. What a morning. May the force be with you. These are not the droids you are looking for.
That's a good day.
Mr. Kolach just informed us that he has no tidbits for us. So I'm gonna say now on the recording what I said just pre-recording. The 3 funny words I've learned in Korean. At least to me, they are funny because of the pronunciation, which is dun dun, dun dun, tok tok. It's just hilarious just by pronouncing. So dun dun means fat, tik tik means smart, and no.
It was healthy. You said that it was the opposite. It was healthy.
Okay, I have a fun fact. Fun fact is that in Chinese, fat is dun. So I think it's taken maybe from Chinese.
Mm-hmm. That was instead of the tidbits. There you go. It was the language window. Today we are continuing with the Scrum discussion. And I leave my good friends Kolach and Baruch to start asking questions.
So last time we were talking with you about Scrum overall, Jakub, but there are many methods, approaches, rituals. In Scrum or in general in Agile that are actually helpful for people who don't use any Agile methodologies. So you can use it in Waterfall, for example. So one of them is retrospective. And I don't know how about others in other companies, but in our company, we are currently going through actually yearly evaluation. And this is where that retrospective could be very useful. And maybe we can first start what that is. What is a retrospective? And do you use it in your work, Jakub?
Oh, yes. Great. We're starting with retrospective because I think that's like one of the most useful ceremonies, or how you call it, rituals, from Scrum or from Agile ceremonies. And it's really useful. We use it a lot. I mean, after every sprint, we do retrospective. And we also did some retrospective for teams which are not using Scrum, so they are not working with sprints. But still the retrospective can be useful, and it can be useful also not just in software delivery, but whenever. So the point of retrospective, or the purpose of retrospective, is basically to inspect of what is happening, how we work, what we do, and what can we do better. Basically, how can we improve our work, not just like how to do the work we did differently, like the technical stuff, for example, but the way of working, also the relationships, also basically whatever which can be improved. It's also a place for appreciation of others. So usually in the retrospective, you have these segments. I mean, there are a lot of ways how to do the retrospective. Basically, you can go really simple, like what went well, what went less well, let's say. Let's not say it went bad. I mean, because we want to stay on positive note, right? And also, like, you want to appreciate. And there is this one good sentence, or how to say it, which is good to tell people before the retrospective starts. We assume everybody is doing their best based on the skills, based on the knowledge they knew at the time. So that's good to know. That's good to say before the retrospective, so they have this in mind, because it's not like we are going to blame that he didn't know that, he didn't do that. I mean, or he or she. We don't just blame like he or she did something bad. We inspecting like, okay, what was done and how can we prevent it in the future if it wasn't done in the best way we know now.
I have maybe total different question, but you just mentioned something that you are not trying to blame someone, you're trying to stay in a positive note. Just recently I was doing one education, and I was also highlighting that sort of we need to stay in a positive note. But then in a feedback, I received that it's kind of something like it's kind of weird that we want to be all like a sunny. And so probably I didn't phrase it well, but how can you elaborate more specifically? What does it mean to stay in the positive mode? And what we're trying to say here is not like we are all shiny and everything is unicorn and rainbowish, but it's just that the communication and the type of words we're trying to use, it's not to hurt people, but it's to learn from it and move forward. But can you say it in your words, like when you do retrospectives, how such a staying in positive note looks like?
Well, yeah, you basically said it. It's pointing on something can be done better, because we are not trying to evaluate individuals, but we are looking at the work or at everything as a team, because all the work and all the deliveries from, let's say, the sprint, if we are talking about Scrum, is the team responsibility, not just like we divide the work. Okay, he will do this, she will do that, and they are responsible. I mean, if somebody needs help, they need to ask for it or talk about it. And on the retro, this can be mentioned, like, okay, this some sort of work or some part of work was not done because we didn't ask for help. We didn't mention on stand-up that somebody is struggling or something like that. So it's not like, okay, you were slacking off, you were not doing something properly, or you were something like this. So it's not like blaming. We are just trying to figure it out what went less well and how to improve it. It's not about just mentioning what went wrong, but what we can do about it. And sometimes you may find like something bad happened, but we cannot influence it because it was something external. We can try, like find the right people who are responsible for taking care of it. But usually, if we are trying to address the things, we can improve ourselves and basically do these improvements till the next retrospective.
There's this thing which was done as a study, and they took two groups of people, and one of them was told that there is a problem they need to solve. And the other group, which was taken to a separate room, they were said that they have a challenge to overcome. So it was just one word to change. There was a problem and a challenge. And what they measured was the cortisol level of these groups. And when it comes to the first group who received the problem to solve, they had higher cortisol level, which means they were in a higher stress than compared to a group which was challenged, because for them it was a competition. So their cortisol level was lower, but their testosterone was up, which meant that they are in a competition sort of mode and they want to achieve some result. So that's why I feel that framing is really important also on the retrospective. And at the same time, we need to remember that we want to build error positive culture, which means that we want to say out loud that we screwed up, we fucked up, and these are our issues which we had, but we are trying to overcome them and try to improve. And although we may screwed up in the past, we are now looking for a way how to do it better in the future.
And yeah, I mean, as I was mentioning, there are different ways and different models of retrospectives. Like you can do it in different formats, and yeah, sometimes it's stated like, yeah, what are the problem areas, and sometimes like, okay, what challenges are we facing? You know, so it may work differently, and you may
what opportunities of growth we have.
For example, yeah, I mean, you can phrase it the best way you see it, and you can try this. And there are also, I mean, if we want to talk more about different formats, for example, we are using a Miro since we are working online, and we are using Miro tool, and there are like hundreds of templates so you can use, and there are fun ones, there are serious ones, and there are like, okay, simple ones, so you're just straightforward going in. But sometimes it's good to have like this, some icebreaker activity, which just let people talk before doing actual retro, so they are not like just sitting and waiting, because sometimes when you are working with like developers, they are really introverts, they don't want to speak, they don't want to open up. And if you have this relationship and start some fun activity, which if they will participate, it will just make them feel more safe, like, okay, they can talk.
Kubik, is retrospective meeting the only meeting where you use retrospective?
I would say I'm trying to use retrospective as much as possible anywhere I see something for improvement. Like, I'm not waiting for retrospective to happen to address these issues or challenges, right? So if I see something, I open it right away. But if it's something minor, yeah, it can wait. Depends on the situation. And we are going back to depends.
Mm-hmm. So can you describe your retrospective meeting? How does it go?
Yeah, I can describe the last one, which we tried some funny template on Miro, and basically it's online meeting. And firstly, we are doing this icebreaker, and it was like we had team of retrospective was dog team, and first this icebreaker was create a meme picture, right? With dog team, which would describe or reflect how you feel about the last sprint. And it was really funny. Like, there are a lot of dog templates for memes, and I just loved it. So we had a laugh, and everybody was like, "Yeah, okay." And then, okay, let's do the serious stuff. I mean, even the serious part of the retro doesn't need to be so serious, because like we try to establish the safe space, and we want people feel like, okay, they can talk about anything. So then I will mention that it's let's call it phrase that everybody did their best, etc., which I was mentioning. And then basically we have some categories of for their inputs, like, okay, what went well, and I can try to find that which was in the doc team. But basically there are some categories like, okay, what did you liked about the last sprint? Like, what was well, what do you want to appreciate? Who are your heroes of the sprint? Like, okay, who you want to like personally appreciate, like to mention their name, and because of they did something. And there are also categories for, okay, I have it open so I can read it. So first one is Pandog, like how could we enjoy our work more? How could we make more time for fun in the workplace? And there is place to put inputs for this category. There is like who's awesome, and where we are excelling as a team. What great things are we doing that we should keep up with? Then it's also this is fine, and it's what's making us nervous as a team. What are we not prioritizing? And the last one is Insanity Wolf. What problems do we have as a team? That can be used the challenge word. What's frustrating us that we need to address? So basically these categories, and people are like guided on. So it's not like, okay, put all your inputs, but they have categories so they know what they can think of and bring the topics. And after we have all these topics on the board, we just go to try to cluster them, because sometimes in different categories may have something connected together. So we just do cluster about the same topics. Then if there is too much of them, we are trying to dot voting. So we prioritize them. Basically, everybody has like 3, maybe 5 sometimes votes, and we just address the votes. And what has the most votes, we just go and talk about it. And the talking phase is the most interesting, because everybody can speak up their opinion. What can we do better? And from the discussion, we are trying to create the action point, like what we will do till the next retro, or if it may take longer. But usually we are trying to fix it so it's not repeating from retrospective to retrospective. Because if you let people talk and they will address the issue like, okay, we have this problem and this problem, and nothing will do about it, and it will be in the next retro, and then in next retro they will start to think like, okay, why we doing this? There is no progress, there is no help. Okay, we don't have to mention it, and they will start to feel like, okay, this is pointless, and they stop address the issue.
So how do you decide who will take on some actions to fix the issues?
Well, it depends. It depends on the issue itself. If it's something like the process related or the company related, I am usually as a Scrum Master trying to take it on me, because I want guys and girls to be focusing on development work. So they are not bothered with like, okay, I need to talk with some manager about this and this and so. But if there is something like technical stuff and they want to have some sort of different approach on some technical stuff, then I don't really know how to implement something or that. So I let them to decide, okay, who is gonna take the lead on this. So it's usually some of the developers.
How it goes with the volunteering for these topics, issues? Do they volunteer really fast, or they are hesitant, or you need to pick, or how does it go?
Usually it's like, if I'm asking like, okay, who will take this one? It's silence. Usually, yeah, it's silence. Sometimes it happens like, okay, yeah, I can do it. Sometimes, rarely, but usually I'm not asking like, okay, who will take this one? I'm asking like, you will take this? And if he may say no, and I will just move on and ask somebody else. But I'm usually going straightforward, asking somebody if he can or she can take it.
I just tested it, because usually when my manager asks who would volunteer, I raise the hand, right? So now I'm testing for a couple of months that I'm quiet. And suddenly there is an awkward silence. And I'm like,
So how long does this process usually take, these retrospective meetings that you do?
Yeah, I mean, our is usually not longer than 1.5 hours, but it depends. It depends based on if we have time after the meeting, like if there is not something else important they need to attend, so we can talk more about the stuff. But usually there is not so many topics, so we can solve them like in time. But yeah, I mean, 1 hour and maybe 1.5 hours, it's sufficient time for our 2-week sprint. If it would be longer, like for example, we had 4-week sprints, it may take longer because we may address more issues, like more things happen and we can talk more. So there in the Scrum guide, there are like these guides, what should be the time box for if you have 2-week sprint and so on. If you have 1 week, if you have 2 weeks. So there are these guides, but I mean, it's up to you. You can iterate even on the retrospective time, like first sprint, you will do 1 hour and you will find like, okay, it's not enough time. So you can prolong it if you agree with the team, if they want to talk more. So next sprint, you will have 2 hours and you find, okay, that's too much. And we won't spend that much time. In that case, you can still have like, okay, 2 hours booked in the calendar, but you will always finish sooner. And they will have like, you always have time for it. So I'm for like booking more time and sooner rather than book less and later.
So is there a rule that Scrum Master is always the one facilitating retrospective meetings?
Well, usually it's the Scrum Master, because if...
I thought he will start, it depends.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted, but surprise. I don't know how to start, so it depends. You forced me. So usually it's the Scrum Master, because if you just let the meeting start and you will be silent, like, okay, let's see this, how it's happening. Then usually it's the much slower start. Like, it's not like, okay, let's do this. Then I am in the bringing that energy. Like, okay, let's do this. They're usually sitting in silence and, okay, are we going to do this, or how are we going to do this? And there is no this like
it's not as dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why usually I am, or Scrum Master facilitates the meeting, because he is trying to move things forward and bringing the energy, so everybody is talking.
But I think that it's not the only Scrum Master option. I've seen teams where they shifted the responsibility from one person to another. So 1 month or one sprint, it was one person, or several sprints, it was one person, then it shifted to another person. And again, it created some sort of codependence on one another, and also some sort of, joint contribution that I'm doing it so I know how it feels to be the facilitator and to actually be not just contributor, but also running it from the background. So again, I will agree with Jakub. So it depends on the maturity of the team, how you want to run it. If it's just Scrum Master, or it could be somebody from the team as well.
But you're also allowing the skill development in that perspective as well.
For teams that are not using Agile project management, where would you suggest they use retrospective? Maybe not retrospective meeting, but the elements of retrospective meeting.
You can still use the full retrospective. You can select your format of the retrospective, and what I would do is like, I would still recommend to do the retrospective on repeating it every month, every 2 weeks, based on the work they are doing. If they're doing something repetitive and some usual tasks, usually it's not so much to like discuss, let's say, every week or every 2 weeks, maybe. It depends on the work itself.
I will add here that there are also wrong uses of retrospective. And maybe you've noticed, or maybe you've experienced it. There is a retrospective which you do once per year. And it could be annual revision of your work. What went well, to praise yourself, what didn't go so well, so to see opportunities for growth for the next year. And usually your managers or somebody uses it to review your work for the whole year. I would say that this is not the way you should do retrospective. I mean, it's really useful to do it also after full year. But again, retrospective is good to use frequently, because you can ad hoc or you can frequently assess your problems, your gaps, your blind spots, and you can react towards them. If you do it once per year, something what happened in January, you're going to evaluate it in December, and that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. I agree with that, because that's what makes it agile. It's doing it frequently and address the issues from one retrospective to another. Like you will solving those problems or do those challenges. So you will address them, you will solve them, and trying to work on them. So you are still improving on what is the current situation. So you are still in the most recent problem areas, and you are addressing those, and not like just the 1 year. The 1 year evaluation on this retrospective, the annual one, it's basically just reflection on what happened during the year, and maybe some space for just 1 year planning ahead. But it's like, to plan 1 year ahead is really why. Well, I mean, it depends on based on the work. Like you can plan for 1 year, what's the plan or some vision, but it's not like, okay, this is something I can commit to, because in software development, it's really hard because the technology changes now. When everything is basically every developer is using ChatGPT for their work, so it's different.
I have a question. You've mentioned that you're using a mirror tool for retrospective. When you solve some of those items, whatever it's discussed, do you also keep a track, like what has been solved, what is still sort of on its way to be solved, etc.?
Yeah, we are create these sticky notes or items or something, and to mention like, okay, what needs to be done. And I'm trying to keep an eye on that, like, okay, if it's moving. And on the next retrospective, I'm asking about those. If there are something I should solve, it should be gone. I'm not asking about that because usually I'm trying to solve them. If not, I can bring them like, okay, this is still pending. So I can put it right away into action items like this is not solved. But yeah, I'm usually like asking like, okay, what about this? Was it addressed? Was it discussed? Do we need more time on this or something like that? So since we have all these old boards, we can check like, okay, what was mentioned and what was the action items from the previous one, so we can discuss them as well. Like, are they in progress, or is there any other issues? Is there something I can help?
So you have like a board for that particular sprint and then the action item, but it's not like you are collecting that there would be, let's say, a space where you keep collecting what has been solved, what is still like in an action item, but you have like numerous boards and you have to go like back.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But usually you don't have to go back too much, because it should be solved. If it's not solved, then there is something bigger. There is something issue we either cannot solve, or okay, it's something bigger. It will take more time. But usually it's not like, okay, if we are still addressing something which was mentioned like half a year ago, then okay, what are we doing? It needs to be prioritized or something. There is also like there was this we use different tool, and that supports like export to, for example, we are using Jira for tracking our work tickets. So there was also possibility to extract action items to Jira as a ticket. So we can have it on the board next to work items, and we see like, okay, this needs to be done as well. So we can put it into our sprint planning as part of it. Will also take time, so we need to plan with it.
Jakub, again, our knowledge just grew a little bit, so I hope our listeners like it as well. And it's time for a recommendation.
I would like to recommend one thing which I came across recently, and it's podcast or video podcast. I'm not sure how many versions this guy has. I'm watching it on YouTube, and it's called Huberman Lab Podcast. It's a video series of Dr. Andrew Huberman, who talks about how our body works from the perspective of hormones and how we can impact, or how these hormones impact us. So you find there a lot about testosterone, estrogen, how to deal with those and how to improve them, how they impact us, how to improve the body condition and live healthy thanks to all these influences, and how to deal with them back and forth, because it's all interconnected. So if you are interested into how to get better at sleeping, learning, dreaming well, everything like that, you will find information there.
And we will include the link in the description.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a topic you want us to discuss. And with that said, we're gonna say 수고하셨습니다.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Oh.
This podcast represents our own opinions, experience, and our own ideas. We do not represent any official statement from our employers, and this is not their official channel representing the company.